what is the topic?
Life of Moses.
The life of Moses. Good. So do any of you know about Moses in the Bible?
Yeah.
Anybody know about
I
Moses?
didn't read it this morning.
You don't know about Moses, the story of Moses.
We do.
You
I didn't
do.
read it this morning.
Wait. Yeah, what's the story about Moses?
It's like when he gets when he's a baby.
Yeah.
He gets he's in like a thing and he's in the river and Pharaoh and the wife, the Pharaoh's wife found him.
Okay, yeah, you do know. You do know. That's good. That's good. Okay, so that's good. It's good if you know a topic, so when it's being treated, you understand it, so you're not learning. But those of you who don't know, you listen. What about Moses?
He parted the sea.
He parted the Red Sea, yeah, when he was grown up. Okay, so let's start. So, because there was a famine on earth at that time, you know what a famine is?
Yeah, no.
What's a famine? You don't know?
It's a cruise.
There's no crops, no food, so everybody was starving. Yeah, but the only place where there was food was Egypt. So everybody goes to Egypt to buy food. Yeah, there was food only in Egypt because God used Joseph to make sure there was food. So there was food in Egypt. So anybody who needed food, they go to Egypt and buy food. So eventually, Joseph's family moved to Egypt. There were 70 of them. 70 in that family. They moved to Egypt because Joseph was there. He said instead of his family to be coming and buying food and going back, they should just live there where there is food. So there were 70. Eventually, those 70, they became so many people because they were having babies and having babies and having babies, and they became so many. So the Egyptians were afraid that the Israelites are now so many in our land. If there is war, maybe they will join with the enemy against them. So they decided to make them slaves. So they became slaves in Egypt. But they were still multiplying. They were still multiplying, even though they were slaves. They were still having babies. They were still having babies. So the more they were afflicted, that means the more they were punished, the more they were treated cruelly, the more they were treated badly, the more they were having babies. So there were still a lot of the Jews, of the Israelites. So Pharaoh, he made an order. So what was the order?
To kill the
Newborn sons. Thank you. So he made an order that all the newborn baby boys should be killed. So immediately the Israelite had a baby boy. The baby boy had to be killed.
Why?
Because if the men, lots of men, if there's war, the men will join and fight. But if they only have girls, you know, the women don't normally go to war. Yeah, so they're not afraid if there's a lot of women. But if there's a lot of men, the men will go to war and fight against them. So they didn't want there to be boys. So they can be girls. Girls are okay. Girls will get married. You know. So
marry girls.
yeah, so Moses' mom, when she had him, she had to hide him. She didn't want them to know that she had a baby boy. Because if they knew, what would happen to the baby?
They will kill the baby.
They would kill the baby. So she hid baby Moses for how many months?
60 months.
Huh?
80 months.
No, it's in your handout. 3 months. 3 months. She hid the baby for 3 months in the house. She didn't want them to know that she had a baby boy. But eventually, she could not hide him anymore because he was getting bigger. He would be making noise. You know, he would be screaming. She couldn't hide him. So what did she do?
Yes.
Yes.
He put baby Moses in the river.
In the river. Thank you. She put the baby in a basket and put the basket on the river Nile and said, well, I'll leave him to God. You know, he's now in the hands of God. And so the river took the baby. So it's either the baby can capsize in the river, and if the baby capsizes, what's going to eat the baby?
Crocodile.
The crocodiles. Because the river Nile had a lot of crocodiles. So either the baby is going to drown, or the baby is going to be food for the crocodiles, or God is going to deliver and save the baby. But she couldn't hide the baby anymore. So the baby was going. So let's read our first verse. Let's read the first verse together. Exodus 2, 1-2. Read.
There was
a man from the family. Who is Levi? You. You see? That's your name. Yeah? So let's read. He married a woman who was also from the family of Levi. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She saw how wonderful the baby was, and she hid him for 3 months. Let's read the next one. Exodus 2, 3-4. But after 3 months, she was not able to hide the baby any longer. So she got a basket made of reeds and covered it with tar so that it would float. She put the baby in the basket. Then she put the basket among the tall grass at the edge of the Nile River. The baby's sister stood a short distance away. She wanted to see what would happen to him. So the baby's sister, do you know her name?
Yeah.
What's her name? What's Moses' sister's name? Anybody know? Yeah. Levi, you should know, because your name is in this story.
Levi.
No. The sister is a girl. Levi is a boy's name. Yeah? Nobody know?
I'm gonna take
It starts with an M.
Emma.
No. Emma doesn't start with M.
Starts with E.
Not Mary. Nobody know? M-I?
Emma. Michelle.
Miriam. So his sister Miriam watched the basket to see where the river would take her baby brother. The mom could not watch. She said, no, I can't watch this. So the mom left.
I hide.
Yeah, the mom went home, but her heart would be heavy. She would be crying, exactly. She would be crying, that's her baby. That's her son. So the mom is so sad. She can't watch. No, I can't watch this. So she went home. But the sister, Miriam, she stood and she was watching the basket while the river was taking the baby away. The sister was watching. And then at that time, Pharaoh's daughter, she was in the river with her maids. She was bathing, in the river. And she saw this basket floating along. Yeah? And so she told one of her maids to go and fetch the basket. So they brought the basket to her. And when she opened it, what did she see inside?
Moses.
She saw a baby. He did not have a name. He didn't have a name at that time. She saw a baby. And she said, oh, this must be one of the Hebrew babies. He's in the basket because my father said they should kill all the baby boys. This must be one of the Hebrew babies. So she took the baby. And she looked at this baby. This baby was handsome. This baby was gorgeous. And then Miriam, who is Miriam again? Moses' sister. She ran to Pharaoh's daughter and said, do you need somebody to look after the baby for you? A maid, And then Pharaoh's daughter said yes. She said, okay, let me go and fetch a woman who can look after the baby for you. And who did she go and fetch? The mom. The mom. She fetched the baby's mom. And then the mom came like she doesn't know the baby. And then Pharaoh's daughter said, look after this baby for me and I will pay you. You understand? And it's her baby, but she did not say. So she took her baby home and she's now looking after her own baby. So now she's free. She can take the baby out. If the soldiers see her with the baby and say, that's a Hebrew baby, the baby should be killed, what will she tell the soldiers? It's Pharaoh's daughter's son. It's not my baby. It's Pharaoh's daughter's son. So the soldiers cannot kill the baby. So she was free with the baby. So she looked after the baby. She must have taught the baby that you are Hebrew. You are not an Egyptian. You understand? Yeah, she must have told the baby where the baby is from. You are an Israelite. You are not an Egyptian. You are going to be adopted. You're going to live in the palace, but you are not an Egyptian. It's either that way, or maybe because later she gives the baby to Pharaoh's daughter. When the baby gets older, she takes the baby to the palace, and he starts living in the palace, and he becomes Pharaoh's son. So maybe children in the palace also, they told him when they saw him walking like, I'm Pharaoh's grandson. I'm Pharaoh's grandson. Maybe they told him that you are not an Egyptian. You know, you are Hebrew. You are adopted. Maybe they told him that. But somehow he knew that he was not an Egyptian. Or maybe Pharaoh's daughter, one day she sat him down and told him the story of how she adopted him. Because his name Moses, what does Moses mean? Anybody know? Yeah. What does Moses mean? Yeah? She named him Moses because she drew him out of the water. That's the meaning of the name. I drew you out of the water. So maybe one day he sat with his mom and he said, what's the meaning of my name Moses? Why am I called Moses? Then maybe she told him the story. I drew you out of the water. That's why your name is Moses. Thank you. You know, so he will know his history. Yeah, so Moses knew his history. Even though he grew up in the palace, he had Egyptian education. Yeah, he probably dressed like an Egyptian. He was rich. He was one of the rich kids. He had everything, but he knew he was a Hebrew boy. He knew he was not an Egyptian. So one day, when he was a bit bigger, he was walking around Egypt. He saw an Egyptian beat a Hebrew boy. He saw an Egyptian hit a Hebrew. So Moses looked left and right. Nobody was there. And what did he do to the Egyptian? No, yeah. What did he do? He killed the Egyptian. Absolutely. You guessed, but you guessed right. He killed the Egyptian for hitting a Hebrew. You see, so even though he grew up in the palace, he was being trained in the palace, he went to the best schools. Egypt was very, very good in education. You know, they were very good in stuff like that. So he must have gone to uni. He must have gone to the best education schools. He must have had the best tutors that money could buy. You know, he lives in he's a royalty. So everything will be free. But still, he knew He was Hebrew. You know, he didn't forget where he came from. He still knew that I am Hebrew. I've got Hebrew blood in me. So I'm not going to behave like an Egyptian. So when he saw this Egyptian hit the Hebrew, whom he considered his people, he killed the Egyptian, even though he's living in the palace, even though his adopted mother is Egyptian, even though his grandfather is Egyptian, even though he dresses like an Egyptian, even though he has an Egyptian accent, he eats Egyptian food. You know, everything about him is Egyptian, but he knew in him that he's not an Egyptian. He's Hebrew. He never forgot where he came from. I was reading something about this footballer, Ronaldo, I think. They were asking him, why do you live with your mom? Or why does your mom live with you? One of them. And I don't know if the story is true, but I read of it, and he said when he did not have anything, his mom was very, very poor. She looked after him. Sometimes his mom will not eat so that she can buy him a pair of shoes so he can go and play football. You know, his mom didn't have any money, but she struggled, she suffered, and then she got money. So without his mom, he will not be who he is today. So he can never forget his mom. You all know the footballer, Ronaldo. He said it's because of his mom. That's why he is who he is today. So you see, even though he's now very powerful and wealthy, he did not forget his mother. There are some people, immediately they make their money, immediately they become famous, they just forget about their family. They forget about those who helped them. If you saw this film, it's called Rocky. There's a film, Rocky. It's a boxing, you know Rocky? It's a boxing film. Yeah. So this Rocky, he saw this boy, Tommy, on the streets. Yeah, Tommy was like, he's just on the streets, just doing like bad things. He would have been in gang. So Rocky took Tommy and started training him to become a boxer. He told him that if you're on the streets, you're going to end up in prison. Or die. Exactly. Yeah. So come, let me train you to become a boxer, so you can be a professional boxer. So Rocky trained Tommy. So every day, Rocky will take Tommy to the gym, and he taught him how to box, he taught him how to spar, he taught him everything. And eventually, Tommy became a professional boxer. Thank you. So he became well known. And one time when they were interviewing Tommy, and they said, yeah.
Is it Tommy the boxer in real life? Or?
No, this is in the play. The film is called Rocky. Yeah, and there's an actor there called Tommy. Yeah, and Rocky is Sylvester Stallone. Is that him? Yeah, Sylvester Stallone. He did the Terminator. No, not that film. Okay, what other film did Rocky do that is popular that they might know?
I don't know what they were.
Yeah, I just know him in Rocky. Yeah. So when they were now interviewing Tommy later, when he became famous, and they said, who will you thank? Who made you who you are today? He did not mention Rocky. He mentioned somebody else. Rocky was at home. He was watching the telly, and they were interviewing Tommy. You know, and Rocky was at home. So he was so excited. That's my boy. That's my boy. You know, he was watching the telly. And then they were interviewing him. Who do you have to thank for this? Who made you? And Rocky was at home. He said, yeah, it's me. And he mentioned somebody else. Rocky was devastated. That what? Because he was the one who he devoted all his time all his energy to making Tommy who he is, and he did not acknowledge him at all. He mentioned somebody else. Even he didn't want to see Rocky again. Whenever he sees Rocky outside, he will be telling Rocky that I am now the greatest. You have retired. You are nobody. I am now the greatest. And Rocky will be telling him, why are you doing this? We used to be so close. We used to be like friends. And he said, you get away. You know, you're nobody. And then one day, the Rocky said, okay, let's fight. And then we'll see who is the greatest.
And then they fight.
And then they were fighting. And who do you think won?
Rocky.
Rocky won. Rocky won. Rocky won. Even though Rocky was older and he had retired and he was injured, he beat Tommy up. Because, you know, he trained him. He taught him everything that he knew. And he won. He forgot who he was. He forgot where he came from. That's where I am going. Moses, coming back to the topic, he never forgot who he was. He never forgot his people. He never forgot his background. So even though he was, the Bible says in Hebrews 11, that he decided to abandon the palace for his people. How many people nowadays can do that? You are living in the palace with the king and you have everything. And if you live there, you're going to be poor. You're going to be with your people. Many people will not do that. But Moses had a destiny. Yes. Make sure it's good, because you are interrupting. Yeah, tell me. Make sure it's good. Whatever it is you want to tell me. Go on. Make sure it's good. I'm listening. Like, for real? Yeah? Yeah? You see? So Moses did not forget where he's from. So all of you now, you are still very young. You will become wealthy. You will become famous. Yeah? All of you will become somebody. You must not forget where you are from. Don't forget your mom when you have money. Don't forget your dad. Don't let them suffer. There are some very, very, very rich people. If you see the way their moms are living, you'll be amazed that, is that your child? You'll be amazed. I know that there are some parents who, they are never satisfied. No matter what you do for them, they just want more and more and more, and they're never satisfied. But you do the little that you can do, and instead of not doing anything at all, do the little you can do. I remember those days before I had children. I used to send my mom every time, still every time. Oh, Tina sent this, you haven't sent enough. Oh, Tina sent it. It was just like too much. I'm like, excuse me, you know, every single time there's always one demand or another, one demand or another. You don't just call me to say hello or to ask how I am. It's always, I need this, I want this, send this, you know. Don't forget where you come from. Don't forget those who helped you get to where your mom or your dad
or your grandpa
or your grandparents. Don't forget those who helped you get to where you are. Everybody needs people. There's always somebody who will help you to get to your destination. Don't forget them. You know, when things are okay for you, Moses never looked back. He knew who he was. He did not compromise.
Why did he not get killed?
Why didn't he get killed? Well, I think Pharaoh's daughter was against her dad's decree. It was her dad who made that law. You know, the dad made the law. Also, God's favor will be on the baby, because God wants to use Moses. So God's favor will be on him. So when she opened the basket and she looked at the baby, all she could feel was love towards this baby. So she couldn't kill the baby. and she wouldn't have killed the baby anyway. She would have had to take the baby to her dad. I said, this is one of the Hebrew babies. Or she would have had to call one of the soldiers and say, oh, that's one of, to kill. She herself. Or she may not be in agreement with her dad's policy. Because Pharaoh made the law. It doesn't mean that Pharaoh's daughter agrees with it. She might be telling him in the palace, but Dad, that's harsh. Dad, you can't do that. You can't kill baby boys. They're innocent. What have they ever done to you? You understand? Maybe she's not in agreement with it. But also remember God's favor. God's mercy is on that baby. You understand? God wants to use that baby. So God protected Moses. Because the basket also could have toppled over. He could have drowned. The crocodiles could have eaten him. Anything could have happened, but God protected him. And God led him to the right place. God led him to the right place. And Pharaoh's daughter found him, took the baby, and he was raised in the palace. Yeah? So let's turn your handout over. The next page. Yeah, Shell. Yeah, because I've talked about it. I've talked about it. So let's turn over. Let's read the first bit. Exodus 2:11-12. Read. Moses grew and became a man. One day he visited his people, the Hebrews. He saw that they were forced to work very hard. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew man, one of Moses' own people. Moses looked all around and saw that no one was watching. So he killed the Egyptian and hid his body in the sand. So eventually Pharaoh found out that he killed an Egyptian, and Pharaoh was angry. So what did Pharaoh want to do to Moses? To kill Moses. Even though that's his adopted grandson, his daughter's baby. But Pharaoh was angry. He probably told his daughter, you see this boy that you brought into the palace. Because Pharaoh would know that his daughter wasn't pregnant, so she didn't have the baby, but he accepted Moses into the palace, and now he killed an Egyptian, one of Pharaoh's people. So Pharaoh wanted to kill Moses, so Moses had to run away. So Moses ran away to a land called Midian. So when he got to Midian, he met the priest of Midian, Jethro, who had 7 daughters. And Jethro gave Moses one of his daughters to marry, Zipporah. So Moses got married in the land of Midian, and he had a son, Gershom. Yeah.
Why is every woman having a son?
They have daughters too. The thing is, in the Bible, the sons are mostly mentioned, but they also have daughters. The only time a daughter is mentioned in the Bible is if if there's a storyline around that daughter, then they mention the daughter. But if there's no storyline, their daughters are not normally mentioned. So that's why we always get to hear about sons, but they do have daughters as well. So one day, when Moses went to the bush, he saw a burning bush. You know a bush?
Yes, I know.
He saw a burning bush.
Bush is made of wood.
Yeah, so the bush was on fire, but the bush was not burning, but it was on fire. Are you listening?
Yeah.
So he saw a burning bush. It was burning, but the bush was not burning. You understand? But there was fire. So Moses said, let me go and see what this is. So when Moses got close to the bush, he heard a voice. Moses, Moses, take off your shoes from off your feet. The place where you are is holy ground. Moses. So Moses took off his shoes. He said, who is that? Who is that? because the voice is coming from the burning bush. It is I. Go back to Egypt. Go and set my people free. Moses said, Pharaoh wants to kill me because I killed an Egyptian. And you want me to go back there? The voice said, Pharaoh is dead. All those who want to kill you are dead. Go back to Egypt. Go and set my people free. Who are God's people? The Israelites. And remember, they are slaves. They are suffering in Egypt. So God is telling Moses to go to Egypt and set them free. Moses said, so what is your name? If I go to Egypt, they will ask me, who sent you? What's the name of the person? And God said, my name is I am. Tell them I am has sent you. He said his name is I am. I am. Tell them I am. And Moses said, but they're not going to believe me. They won't believe me if I go there. They won't believe me. God said, what is that in your hand? He said it's a stick, because Moses is a shepherd. He's looking after his father-in-law's sheep. You know, Jethro. He's looking after Jethro, the man he met in Midian that gave him the wife. He has sheep. So Moses is helping him look after the sheep. So he holds a stick to guard the sheep, you know, to tell the sheep, go left, go right. And he said it's a stick. God said, throw it on the ground. So he threw the stick on the ground. And what did it turn into?
Sand.
Not sand.
Snake.
A snake. That stick turned into a snake.
Wow.
And Moses ran.
And then, I know. Why?
And God said, take it by the tail. Take it by the tail. So he went near the snake and he touched the tail and it turned back into a stick. It turned back into a stick.
How can it be?
Yes, it turned back into a stick. And God said, when you go back to Egypt, if they don't believe you, throw your stick on the floor, it will become a snake. And they will believe you. And Moses still said, oh no, send somebody else. I can't talk very well. I'm a stammerer. You know a stammerer?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, what's a stammerer?
It's like when you talk,
Yeah.
you stutter.
You stutter. It takes a long time for the words to get out. He said, I'm a stammerer. I won't be able to talk properly if I go to Egypt. And then God said that, okay, Aaron, your brother, will help you. You know? And then Moses went back to Egypt. And everybody, all the Israelites saw Moses and they were happy. They said, yeah, he's our deliverer. He's our deliverer.
Oh.
But it took a long time because Pharaoh refused to let the people go. So there were a lot of things that happened, a lot of plagues that happened before eventually Pharaoh now told the Israelites to go. All of them should get out of Egypt. And that was how they were delivered from slavery. And they left. And when they got to the desert, there is now Pharaoh's army. And both of you are disturbing the class. Pharaoh's army was chasing them. And in front of them was the Red Sea. So the people were afraid. They said, Moses, we're going to be killed. Pharaoh's army are behind us. The sea is in front of us. So what do we do? And God told Moses what? What did God tell Moses to do?
And then run.
There was the sea in front of them. There's the army, Pharaoh's army behind. To swim across the sea. It's a sea, not a river, not a swimming pool. Huh?
I meant to go to the left or the right.
They can't go to the left or right. Pharaoh's army behind, the sea in front. To walk across the sea. To separate the sea. With what? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah?
Snake.
Yeah, the stake. With the stick. Yeah. Yeah, Junior said it ages ago, but I wanted because they were getting there.
I said it now.
Yeah, you said it to me. I heard you, but I want because they were getting there. So God told Moses, "Don't cry to me. Just raise up your stick. You know that shepherd stick.
No.
Just raise it up again. On the water. And what happened to the sea?
It turned into a snake.
Huh?
Turned into a snake.
The sea turned to a snake. No, that didn't happen. What happened to the sea? Huh?
It turned into ice.
It didn't turn to ice. What?
Party.
The sea parted. So there was water here. And there was water here. It separated. And the people walked in between, on dry ground. And when they had crossed, and then the Israelites the Egyptians chasing them, they also came to walk in the dry ground. Then the water came back, and the Egyptians were drowned, but the Israelites were able to cross. And that's how they were free from the land of Egypt. So the main theme of the teaching is don't forget who you are. Don't forget where you came from. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's the main thing. If Moses had forgotten that he's a Hebrew, he wouldn't have delivered the people from Egypt. He would have been an Egyptian. He also would have maltreated the Hebrew slaves.
Yeah.
He would have just been going around like, oh, you're slaves. I'm a prince. He would have forgotten his destiny. You see, we wouldn't have heard all this story about Moses. So don't forget where you are from. Yeah? Because somebody offers you a lot of money, don't forget your purpose in life, what God destined you to do. Don't forget it. Don't let anything make you forget your purpose. You understand? So I need one takeaway from all of you. Yeah.
Never forget who you are.
Don't forget who you are. Shell. Yeah.
Oh, don't forget. Okay, your parents.
Don't forget your parents and your friends.
And your people.
Thank you.
And don't forget your parents.
Don't forget your parents.
And
Shell.
your grandparents.
And your grandparents. Shell. One takeaway. Yeah. Junior, one takeaway.
Always listen to God.
Always listen to God. Philip, one takeaway. Always believe in God. You're just making that up now. Yeah. Lovelace, one takeaway.
If you listen to God, God will deliver you the right way.
Absolutely. Any questions before we finish?
No.
No questions?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for listening.
I've got